All right, guys, welcome back to our interview with Andy Sieberhagen. This is part two. If you haven't seen the part one, that is necessary for you to see this as well. So go ahead and check that out. We were talking about a healing course and what he has worked out called Journey to Fullness, where we have discussed various things like self-awareness and our brokenness and carrying this luggage and this burden along with our ministry and within our mission and just how incredibly God works manifesting himself as the truth in personal people's lives. And that is just an incredible story. Just make sure you go and check that part out. And now, moving on to part two, we are going to be talking about more practical side of things on how, as a person, personally, whoever that are out there seeking this personal healing, this personal journey, and we kind of seem to be stuck because we may not necessarily know where to start or where to go about with that. During the break, Andy, I found this quote by John Maxwell. I don't know if you've heard about it, but I think it was a good quote to just kind of start off this with. John Maxwell has once said, "People change when they are hurt enough that they have to change. People change when they learn enough that they want to change. People change when they receive enough that they are able to change."
Very good.
I think it's a very good quote. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So let's talk about Journey to Fullness and how you apply it to people, right? I mean, I guess it differs from people to people on how they do it, but then according to their situation. But I have seen you do practical things either in group sessions or in personal sessions and stuff like that. So, actually, let's start off with this one. Some people don't know their brokenness, are not aware of their brokenness. Like, how do you help people in that kind of situation,
Yeah. So I think the journey we want to go on is saying, well, am I experiencing and living in the fullness of God? Am I experiencing the full measure of God in my life? That's the question. If I say I am and I'm living every day in the fullness of Him, then I'm living it. But if I'm not experiencing that, it's saying, well, what journey do I need to go on to get there? And let's give you some tools to help you try and figure it out. And I think one of the key things we do in the beginning, and you might remember that, is the life map.
Okay.
Where you get a blank sheet of paper and you put a timeline across the middle, and you just go from as far back as you can remember, whatever age you were, up until the present. And above the line, you put all the positive things that have happened in your life. And then below the line is all the things you'd rather forget, the negative. And the further from the line you are, is the greater the impact that those memories had on you. And so it's such a healthy thing to just take a good chunk of time to actually map it out.
Right.
And lay out all the things that have happened in my life that have brought me to where I am today. And in that map will lie the clues where there may have been things that have happened that are still unresolved, still carry some pain or some emotion. And that map then it gives me a clue on, okay, I need to go and revisit that, or I need to revisit this. So that's a very healthy thing to do with someone you trust, a friend. Sometimes the two of you do it together, and it's telling your life story. And as you systematically going through the seasons of your life, it normally starts to uncover some things that have happened that maybe you didn't think still affected you, but they do.
Right.
So that's a very helpful tool, to use. The other little simple tool is a love triangle where you look at your relationship with your father and your mother and you.
Right.
And describe what you observed as a little child growing up, watching your mom and dad, how they related to each other. What are some words you'd use to describe their relationship, and then your relationship with your dad and your relationship with your mom. Because up until the age of 10, you define what love is based on that triangle.
Right.
either the absence or so in some places there wasn't a father. But all of that as a young child is helping you figure out what love is. And they often in that little exercise also, it uncovers some things that may still be there that affect your ability to experience the love of the Father, you know.
Right.
Because you may not have experienced it from your own father, and so it's hard to know and believe that the Heavenly Father would love you. So
Yeah, and that's the most heartbreaking thing, like to consider the rate of fatherlessness that so many of us are suffering in this world.
Yeah.
And I just recently read a book on like just showing just a brief overlook on like how fatherlessness affects people in their social skills or social interaction, and just like how it just opens up so much more doors for people to reject them even further, although even knowing their situation and understanding how they have not had the love that they're supposed to have since the young age, and people still can't deal with them, you know.
And then I go looking for it, you know. I go looking for that love, and I go looking in all the wrong places.
Right.
That's the problem, and I may have a father, but he may be absent. You know, there's all sorts of things where fathers just are not able to or don't give the kind of love that God intended us to experience. You know.
Right.
So I think these little exercises help us to uncover some of that. You know, we may have buried it, but now there's some emotion when I think about that, and then it's like, okay, there's something there that I need to visit. You know? And then there's the Johari window, which is a very helpful exercise. Where it's these, you've got these 4 blocks of self-awareness, where the first block is a public block, where it's things that the world knows about me and I know about me. I don't mind you knowing that I'm married, that I've got 2 children, that I'm a South African. It's safe. So it's things you know and things that I know about myself. But then there's another block. It's things that I know about myself, but you don't. It's my secrets.
Right.
You know, and I keep, and shame keeps that place locked up. And it's things I know about myself, but nobody else knows. And then there's a third block, which is the blind block, and those are things that people know about me, but I don't know about myself.
Right, yeah.
So you've lived with me, you're seeing things in me, and I can't see it, and you wish you could tell me, you know.
But I'm afraid to tell you.
You know.
Also.
Yeah, I'll be offended or whatever, you know. So it's this blind areas of my life that everybody else can see, but I can't see. And then there's a fourth area of where I don't know and nobody else does. It's these unknown areas of my life. Only God knows.
Right.
And I need Him to reveal these things to me. And sort of the journey to fullness and the freedom is when all 4 of those blocks become completely open. Where I've got nothing left to hide. You know, I don't mind you knowing everything about me. You know, I no longer carry shame. So I've got no secrets to keep from anyone. That's freedom. And then the blind spot is where I'm so secure in who I am that you have permission to offend me, because actually I can't be offended. Because you may tell me something I don't want to hear, but if it's true, I'm grateful because you're showing me something I haven't seen.
Right.
If it's not true, well, I just let it go, but I'm not going to get offended. That sounds like freedom to me. If I can't be offended, that's freedom. But man, how many of us are there? You know, we get so easily offended, and that is a perfect symptom that there's something unresolved in my life. Because if I was secure and walking in freedom and fullness, nobody can possibly offend me. It's not possible. So the moment I cannot be offended and I've got nothing to hide, then I know I'm starting to walk in this fullness. So really the secret of all of this is who am I giving permission to offend me? I have to give people permission, because if I don't give you permission, then I will get offended and you will never tell me. So we need to actually go to people who know us and say, I'm giving you permission to tell me the things I don't want to hear, and I am not allowed to get offended. You know, that's very helpful. And then
That's a really good one.
having trusted guys I can go to when I have done something that I'm ashamed of, and I know they won't judge me, and I walk in the light, because the moment I share it, shame is gone.
Right.
Because I share it with you, and you only come back with me with love and acceptance, well then it's dealt with, you know. So we need to find ways of walking in the light with each other.
Yeah.
So that's a very helpful tool of self-awareness, you know.
Yeah. I think, I mean, you mentioned to us, I think 2 diagrams, I think 3, first with having out your life map, right? And
Yeah.
talking about the Johari's window and the love triangle as well. You know, I think these are very, it's very interesting because, you know, also another reason why I'm also maybe slightly intrigued into this sort of stuff is because it's related with psychological aspect and deal, right? And was there like a relation to psychological application, like whatever that you have known and or learned from psychology, or like how well versed are you in that depth of, and the actual question that I actually wanted to ask is, psychology counseling is secular and the concept can be somewhat similar, so how does it differ from having it to deal with God and having it to deal with self?
Yeah, well, you know, God is the author of all truth. So something may be true and yet it's secular. Well, that's still from God, you know. So I think there's some very practical things that have been so helpful just to get us to a place of truth. And so I have no issue if there's something I discover that some psychologist has used that helps people to be more self-aware. That's fantastic, you know. It's just going to help me to uncover things in that sense. So I found that what God did with me was I went on so many different courses, leadership courses, you know, with OM, and over the years did so many courses. And what I kind of took tools out of all these places that I thought was so helpful, that were life-changing for me, that helped me go on this journey. And that's what I did, is I took tools from all these places and said, well, I actually think these tools will really help us get to a place where we can walk in fullness with God.
So there is a need for a community. There is a need for friendship and people, safe spaces where you can actually be vulnerable and to share and to actually give permission to offend as well with one another, right? That's
absolutely critical. And I will tell you that if I ever move to a place or go to a new area, I cannot settle until I've found those guys who I can go deep with and be real and authentic with, because without them I can't do this journey. You know, I've got to stay living in an authentic way, and I need my brothers to help me do that. Yeah, there's no question. A healing community is so important, you know, in all of this.
Right. And I think that's part of like what also makes the whole re-entry thing a very extra hard, difficult deal, because you struggle to find, you're now apart from that community of where you could be vulnerable with, and now you're here with people who don't even have a concept of, you know, going deep with one another and being personal with this. And in order for you to actually build and that sort of trust is like, it's not built in a day, you know, it's a long build relationship. And so,
and I think part of helping me find guys is, again, if I'm secure, it's helpful that I can be vulnerable with guys and teach them. Because, when they hear me being vulnerable, well, it gives them, they feel safer to become vulnerable, and then it becomes a healing space for them.
Long-term relationship focus, I think that could be a little bit extra challenging for people who are constantly moving around from place to place. And I mean, like, yeah, I mean, you have people who you can, catch up with over online and stuff like that as well, but it's not the same.
No, it's just not the same as sitting together, man.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Right. Let's talk more about like this unforgiveness and brokenness, because from what I have learned from you and throughout the time is that when Christ stood on the cross and he said that it is finished, like it is finished. So the enemy has no longer dominion over us, except that we are able to open the portals for them to still, mess around with us, right? And I would say one is the unforgiveness, because we are due our own forgiveness unless if we keep on holding on to other people, around their throat, and lies.
Yes. And I would say of all the sinful struggles we have, unforgiveness is probably the hardest, because I almost feel like I have a right to, if I'm holding it against someone else, well, they did this to me, and I have a right to hold on to it. That's what's so, but I love the quote. It said, unforgiveness is like drinking poison and thinking it's going to kill your enemy.
Right.
Unforgiveness has only one outcome, and that it destroys the person holding it. My not forgiving it's not making any difference to the other person. It's destroying me. And again, I think Jesus has some strong words about that. Even in the Lord's Prayer, he says, forgive us, but there's a condition. As we forgive,
Yeah. That's a heavy one.
And there's that parable, where the guy's forgiven all his debt. He goes to the other guy who owes him a little, and he says, pay me back. He doesn't want to forgive that guy. And Jesus says, that's the same. If you will not forgive your brother, then I won't forgive you. So I think unforgiveness, if I harbor unforgiveness, it means I don't have a true understanding of the cross.
Right. I think that is precisely right.
And it gets a little bit more complicated with when I can't forgive myself. That is often the deepest struggle, is I cannot forgive myself, and that is something Jesus needs to take care of.
That is something that I had totally no awareness of until my mentor at that time asked me specifically, have you forgiven yourself? And that idea did not exist in my mind.
Yeah.
That's why I didn't even venture down there. And that was eventually the key factor of my own healing, and I just told the coach, like, I don't know. He said, well, go and check it out, ask God about it, so I went out there by myself and just prayed and asked the Holy Spirit to help me if I have not forgiven myself and stuff. And then poof, like words flooded into me, realizing what I have really believed about myself and how I have actually.
And that's it, Jay. The key is saying, why can I not forgive myself? What am I believing that's preventing me from that? And usually there's a lie, right? There's a lie sitting there that's saying, no, you can't because, and there's the lie.
Right. And that plus your desire to actually forgive yourself must be there, right? Your desire to actually face that, and because I went out there praying, asking God, okay, show me these things, right? And I broke down, like totally broke down. I never felt so sorry for myself, right? I never, literally. And I was on my snot, my tears and everything. And I just like, it literally felt like walking out of a prison cell. I looked up in the sky and I said, this is what they call the freedom in Christ. and my life just have never been the same since then, you know. And
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
it's an incredible thing. Like, we don't know it. Like, that's the deal.
That's it, and there is a process in this journey where you go through cleansing, trying to identify sin and stuff, and there's always the obvious sins, that are very clear, but it's these subtle ones, where I don't always think of unforgiveness as sin, or I don't think of these deeper things as, it's just not as clear, and yet those are the most destructive.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And if I can't forgive, then I have to do the work to say there's a lie that's guarding that unforgiveness. Whether it's myself or someone else, I've got to figure out what lie is preventing me from forgiving,
Right.
Because if I'm living in truth, forgiveness is the easiest thing to do. But when I'm held captive by a lie, can't do it.
And the interesting thing that you have mentioned about as well, I think we're just continuing to talk more about like this theoretical side of things, unfortunately, because the idea is continually intriguing, right? That you talked about that servant who was forgiven by the master and goes and finds another guy who he does not want to forgive, and that is a very weird guy. Like, I mean,
yeah. Talk about a lack of self-awareness.
Right. So, when you need to forgive somebody, do you feel that that you need to understand God's love for yourself first in order for you to forgive somebody, or do you need to step out and attempt to forgive the person first in order for you to receive God's love, experience God's love? Like, it's like the chicken or the egg,
Yeah, well, part of it is, if I can't forgive, there's a faulty view of the cross, because when you and I understand that it was our sin that put Jesus there, and it was me that put him there, and he's not holding that against me. He's forgiving me of all of that. Well, what can any human being do to me that compares?
Right.
There is nothing.
Right.
So it's that debt. It's that parable of the debt, where I understand my huge debt put Jesus on the cross. Well, then any debt that I need to forgive a person that's wronged me, compared to what Jesus forgave me of, it should. When I understand that, then I'm able to actually give forgiveness. So there's something that's got to be dealt with there. But sometimes the pain is so strong that it's hard. So it may be uncovering a lie that's protecting that forgiveness, where if I forgive that person, this will happen.
Wow.
And this will happen is usually not true. It's a lie. But I'm thinking,
Yeah.
if I forgive them, well, then they're getting away with it.
Right.
Well, that's not true.
Vengeance is mine.
So that's just a thing guarding the lie. So sometimes I've got to say, well, if you forgave them, what would happen? Well, no, then I would collapse and be in an absolute mess, or it's all a lie, and it's trying to then say, okay, can we ask Jesus that if you forgave the person, you would not be able to live another day? Can we ask him if that's true, So sometimes you want to just take them to Jesus right away and say, well, let's ask him, because right now you feel that's what would happen,
Yeah. And that's such an intriguing thing. Like, going back to that whole thing of just bringing the truth himself there. I tried it with a couple of people, and not as dramatic, but the Lord speaks, The Lord speaks.
Yeah, and I in my own journey have not had any angelic visions. I get jealous.
Yeah.
When like that lady and other people I've worked with, where God does this incredible thing, and I'm like, hey, I want some of that vision,
Yeah.
But he normally deals with me. It's either a word or it's a picture or it's something. It's never anything big, but it's all I need. It's the truth that I need and that I'm getting. And as long as it's the truth that's setting me free, that's all I need, you know.
So let's talk about this concept of lies and your diagram with the house and the trash in the house. Because I always love using that, you know, because I think it makes so much of a sense when I try to explain it out to people.
Yeah, and it's so critical that we understand that, just to give a quick background to it, that the key to spiritual warfare is deception, you know. In Colossians 2, verse 13 to 15, it says, he at the cross, he disarmed them. So Satan and all his kingdom of demons were disarmed at the cross. So they actually have no weapons. So the only weapon they have is to try and deceive me into thinking he does have weapons.
Right.
So deception is his strategy against me as a believer. So if he can get me to believe something that's not true, he can then control my life through that wrong belief. And Paul, that's actually what Paul defines as a spiritual stronghold in Corinthians. 2 Corinthians 4, he says anything that sets itself up against the knowledge of God is a stronghold. And the knowledge of God is truth. So his goal is to try and get us to believe things that are not true about God and about ourselves. So that's where this whole thing is so critical, that if I have a house and I have a rat problem in my house, I'm thinking now, how do I get rid of the rats?
Right.
And, you know, in
What
America
are
they
rats?
have... Well, yeah, we'll talk about that in a moment, but I'm trying to think, how do I get rid of the rats? Well, in America, they love animals, you know, so they won't get a big trap. They'll get a little box with cheese in it with a door that closes, you know. And then the rat's in there and it's still alive, and they'll go into the forest and let the rat go. Well, in Russia, when I lived there, man, they've got these... It chops the rat's head off, man. It's like got no chance. Or so we can get poison or rat traps or get a cat, but actually, you know, that does not solve the problem. It gets rid of that rat, but then the other rats, I always say the other rats come to the funeral, you know, and they're at the house. So what I've actually got to do is figure out what's making the rats come. I've got to go after why is the rat coming to the house, and normally it's because there's some rotten food behind the fridge, or there's something there. And the moment I find that rotten food, I clean it up, get rid of it, and then the rat will leave on its own because it's got no reason to be there. And so when I look at our lives, what are the rats? And you know, is a demon? What is a demon? Is a demon a rat, or is it the garbage? You know, and we often treat it like, well, the demon is the problem. It's the garbage. So let's get rid of the demon, and I'm fine. But that's not true. Why did the demon come there? A demon is not the garbage. A demon is just a rat. So I can get rid of that rat, that demon, but if I haven't got rid of the garbage, the rat will just come back, you know, and get involved again. And then I look at sin. Is sin a rat, or is sin the garbage? And 99% of people, when we do the course, will all tell me that sin is the garbage. You know, just get rid of the sin, and they'll all be gone. And this is what the church says. Right.
That's sort of a linear perspective of...
Yeah, but when I look at my own life and I look at people's lives, you know, they identify the sin, they confess it, but then tomorrow they do the same thing, or next week they struggle with the same thing. So just dealing with the sin is not the issue. I've got to go and ask the question, what is causing me to sin? And that is where we get to the garbage is actually a lie.
Right.
The lie is the garbage. And that's what I've got to focus on. The moment I get rid of the lie and replace it with truth, the garbage is gone and the rats are gone. So, the psalmist says, your word have I hid in my heart that I might not sin against you. So the moment I'm filled with truth in my mind and my heart, I will not want to sin. It's only lies that I believe that make me sin. So if I'm sinning, the question I should be asking is, what am I believing that's making me want to do that sin? If I can change that belief, I will stop sinning. So we've got to go after the lies rather than after the sin. So I confess my sin, but then I have to go after the cause, which is lie. It's lie-based thinking that makes me sin. And it's so critical that we get this right,
Have you found that there are like specific sin that is tied to like specific lies?
Like let's say usually, for example, rejection. Pornography is definitely connected there. Often when you work with guys, you'll often find that it's in a moment where they feel rejected for something. That feeling then takes them there, because somehow porn's going to help me find I'm going to be accepted there, and that's the point. That's the poison that I drink,
Right,
So
sad but true.
I think that's, or I think often for women, they want to know that they're beautiful, and so if I don't think I'm beautiful, or I don't believe I'm beautiful, I'm going to be doing things to try and gain approval. I might wear things to get men's attention because I want to know that I'm beautiful. And often it leads to just my appearance becomes everything to me. How I look is going to give me that approval that I need. So, there certainly are a lot of lies where there are sinful patterns connected with those lies.
Yeah. You got to deal with shame to having to go and accept that, to admit that too,
Yeah, but if we can go after the lie, and that's where, I'm working with a lot of young guys where I'm saying we need to do the work. You can't just say, I'm going to stop. That may work for a day.
Yeah.
But if we can go after, and that's where we haven't really spoken a lot about emotions, but emotions play such a big role in this, because it's how I'm feeling that is such a key messenger that can get me to the lie or the wound or the pain. So if you say something to me, Andy, I don't think you're a very good speaker, or you really made a mess this Sunday in your message, and I go and you say that to me, and I'm like, well, I'm worthy. I'm not worthy. I feel useless.
Right.
I'm nobody. And then that takes me to a place where I've got a sin that I fall back on, that comforts me when I'm feeling that. But when you say that to me and it triggers an emotion in me that makes me feel unworthy, I have to pay attention to that feeling. Because that feeling, then I'm saying, where's that feeling come from? Well, I remember when I was 10, my dad telling me that I'll never be good enough. Okay.
Going all the way back.
That's where the lie was born.
Yeah.
And so then I go to the origin of that lie, and I say, Jesus, is that true? Is it true that I'll never be good enough? And then he does the work there, and then it sorts everything out, So often when I'm trying to deal with sin in my life, I must pay attention to my feelings.
Right.
Because it's always a setup, man. It's always a setup. The enemy sets the whole thing up, man, and he just pulls me along, and my sin, that when I actually fall into sin, it's just the final step in a journey he's taken me on. If I can get active early in the journey and say, let me pay attention to what I'm feeling, then I rather do the work of letting the feeling take me to where the lie and the pain is. And if I can sort it out there, then I don't have to end up in a place of sin.
Yeah, wow. Can you share with me about the practical thing that we did in NDT as well? And we also tried this at one time on the ship, on the Logos Hope as well. Was getting that big paper and then...
Yeah, the body outline.
The body outline, yeah. So what is that about?
Such a powerful exercise, and part of it is trying to uncover all the lies that have been built into me, and so it's normally just an outline of your body, and then asking the Lord, what are lies that have been spoken over me from the outside. So from as long back as I can remember, either family or a teacher or a coach, or just in all the seasons of life, the guys at school, bullies on the playground, just what are lies that have come at me from the outside, and then you write the lie on the part of the body where it's appropriate. So I was told by my school teacher that I'm stupid, so on my head I'd write there stupid. Or my coach told me, I'll never win any race because I'm too fat, Well, I'll write somewhere on my stomach or something, I'm fat, too fat. So you kind of start to just populate the body outline with lies spoken from the outside. And then you take a different color pen, and then it's what are lies that I've believed about myself. That's from the inside. And sometimes they're the same, but sometimes they're different, and so it's on the inside, what are lies that I've believed about myself? And then once I've put it all on there, I can stand back and look at it, and that is Satan's strategy against me. He's got a unique strategy for every one of us, and when I can look at all those lies, that is his exact strategy to try and control my life. It exposes him. And then we got to do the work of saying, okay, so how many of those lies still feel true in my life? And then you go to each lie with your red pen and you say, okay, so if that's a lie, well then what is the truth? And then I start to do the work of saying, Jesus, what is the real truth about me? And I write the truth over the lies, And that's always been very powerful, Some guys need to go away with that outline because it's hard in just 15 minutes to get all the truth. Sometimes I need to take time to go away with it and say, God, this one's really strong. And I sit with him and say, now I want you to show me what's true here.
Yeah. What about for people, how would you help somebody that would say I haven't got anything,
Yeah. Okay. And there's one other exercise I thought worth just mentioning is that whole safe place exercise. You remember that? I don't know if you remember that. So something that's really helpful is we get people to think of a place. It can be real or where I've been to, or a place I can think of that's just beautiful. It's a place where I would go to find peace and just to be alone and experience just peace and beauty and safety and comfort. And we get people to just think. And I've got a place in South Africa, a place on the beach. It's like this cove. It's a real place where I've been, and it's just beautiful. You climb down, and I can picture myself sitting on that beach looking at the ocean. I can go there right now in my head, and it's just safe. I'm at peace. It just helps me get away from all the noise. And then what I do is invite Jesus to actually join me there in that place, to just come and be with me. And then when I sense his presence there, that's when I can talk to him about issues. So okay, Jesus, I remember when they said that to me today, made me feel rejected. What do you say to that? Or I have a memory that was traumatic, but I'm feeling safe, so I go there with Jesus, and it's allowing Him to speak truth to me from a place that's safe. You know, and I've had people say, but is that biblical? Is that whatever? But if you think of Jesus, the way that He taught, He was always using our imagination. He would say, picture a field, and there's a farmer sowing seed. What is He asking us to do? He's asking us to use our imagination.
Right.
And He takes us there in the story, and we're all picturing a farmer sowing seed, and the seeds falling here and there. I can see it all in my mind, and as I'm seeing this picture playing out, He then brings me the truth, you know. So I found this personally so helpful. You know, if I'm anxious, or I'm worrying, or I'm just full of noise and stuff, I just take a moment. I go sit down somewhere, and I get myself to that place on the beach, and I find the distractions are gone. Jesus is there, and I can really clearly talk with Him and hear Him talk to me. And so I found that little exercise has been hugely helpful, both for me and, you know, as people have used it.
Yeah. Yeah, I need to find a safe space in order for us to actually also be vulnerable and also to identify these things, right? So going back onto the full body diagram. So once we have identified our the lies that we had heard over the time, and then you took like another color crayon or something like that.
Yeah, so you had like a blue crayon was for lies that have been spoken over me, and then we took a green one about lies I believe about myself, and then the red crayon is you write on the lie what the truth is. You actually write the truth. What is actually true about me.
Yeah.
And then what happens is in the days ahead when He comes with that lie, I can say, sorry, but can I tell you what's true?
Right.
You know, it's no longer valid because I know what's true, you know, and that's when it's that sword of the Spirit, which is truth. He throws his lies at me, his flaming lies, and I take the sword and I say, it's not true. This is what's true, you know.
So amazing. So good. Wow.
Yeah.
You know, and I also remember drawing a cross over it with the red crayon. It's the same.
Yeah, and so right at the end, it's like, this is what Jesus came for. This is what He gave His life for. He took all of this wrong thinking, all the sin connected, all the shame and the guilt, all of it was taken care of at the cross. So you just put a cross right through it all, and now my life is hidden under the cross.
Wow.
And I can walk in truth.
Yeah. That's what picking up
He
the
bought
cross.
my freedom.
That's what part of picking up the cross is too, you know? To
Yeah.
live in that truth.
Yeah, walking with my cross, it's saying I've died to self, but it's also saying I'm living in freedom. All of that is dealt with at the cross. You know? And like we said in the beginning, death to self is the ultimate freedom, where I don't think about myself anymore.
Yeah,
That's freedom.
Right.
I'm alive in Him.
Yeah. And then, you know, it's funny because we have this picture of like when you say pick up the cross and follow Jesus, we picture this heavy cross carrying on our backs as a burden, sort of a deal, you know, facing the suffering of life. And, you know, I mean, obviously there's part of that also, but Jesus said that my yoke is easy and my burden is light. You know, and so...
Yeah, we don't always think of the cross, carrying it as the reminder of my freedom. Yeah.
Right.
We see it in the negative way, and yet the cross is the reminder that He's bought me freedom, you know. And the best thing I could do for Jesus is to live and walk in the freedom that He bought. That's saying to Him, Jesus, it was worth it.
Right.
But you know, when I say, hey, I can't forgive myself, or I'm too ashamed, we're saying, no, Jesus, what you did wasn't enough. Yeah, I need to suffer more, and you know,
Right.
And we cheapen what he did on the cross for us.
Yeah, yeah. This is amazing. I think it has been a fantastic chat and talk. Just the last question that I will have for you is like, are you, is this like a solid course that you have, made out, or that is something that is available, or are you doing this Journey to Fullness thing in your church? Like, what are your plans and your steps and all with that?
Yeah, so we've actually just tweaked it. We've got it, we've got it in a good place now. We've taken it all over the world. We were in Turkey in February. We were in England in March. We've been to Central Asia. We just want it to be made available. And so, yeah, we've got it. It's all together. We don't want to try and make money out of it. We just want people to experience it. But we like people to have gone through it and experienced it before they give it away. It's like you need to use the tools and see the impact on your life, which will then make you want to use it with others. So the beautiful thing about our church right now is we've got some wonderful people who are trained in this, that work in the space, and I'm trying to figure out how once or twice a year we go somewhere and we do a training and take people through it and then say, right, go for it, And guys like you've experienced it. We want to just make it available to be used, and then you train others, put them through it and build a team. Because there's no Christian, no follower of Jesus who can't do this, We wanted it to be simple and reproducible, and that was the goal of the whole thing.
Right. And it's not really, it's really not about us, because it's just all we need to do is just bring Jesus there, that's what we are. We are there as witnesses.
That's the beauty of it, and it's the key thing is knowing how to listen well, how to be a good listener. That's the most important piece in all of this.
Right.
Because then you'll ask the right questions.
Right. Is this something that you're gonna make like in a series, like online or something like that? Yeah,
I've actually I have put the teachings together. I've done a recording of the teachings.
All right.
And we've got the books now. There's a workbook and there's a notebook that's there, and it's so yeah. The stuff is we feel like we've got it where we need it to be.
Is it available for everybody, like to be accessible online or something like that?
We haven't done that yet. We got to figure out how to do that. But I would certainly be willing to make it available. Certainly. The materials. The only concern I would have is someone would take it and try and use it when they haven't been through it.
Right, and that's
that's the hard part. It's just saying, I would want to give it to someone who I trust will take it and use it, because I don't think it's good to just pull out one thing and use that, and because it's designed to go from the first part to the end and not just pieces of it, So that's the only reluctance, to just put it out there for anyone. I think they may not experience the whole thing, which is important,
I would still love to do the whole course of Journey to Fullness. I just touched base, it was just like a 1 week thing, right? And then afterwards I heard from somebody, like my friend, who said like there was a whole 3 months of teaching on Journey to Fullness or something like that. And he said he did the whole thing and it was such a wonderful thing, and I'm like, oh man, I need to get that sometime,
Yeah, and there's some great resources I could send you as well, where people have done some great work just in this whole area that is really helpful.
Sure. I mean, if you share that with me, I can also put like the links in the description.
Put a little resource list together.
Yes.
Just some books and some materials that are really helpful.
Yes. All right. Great. All right, Andy, I think that's enough for today.
Yes.
It has been packed. It has been wonderful. It has been awesome, and I think this is this is something that we all need to hear, So thank you very much for your time, And
Thanks for having me. I'm just so excited for what this whole podcast is going to do, and we trust God will use it in a great way for you.
yes, I hope so as well. Let's pray for that.